Okay, perfect, okay. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the June 10th, 2024 meeting of the Fair Rent Commission. Before we begin, I would like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2024 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from the April 8th meeting.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention.
Okay, one abstention. All right. The ayes have it with one abstention. Okay, so approved. Okay. We're going to move to amend the agenda here today. I would like to see if we can address the old business because we have some, the claimant here in the room as well as the respondent. We want to see if, before we get into anything with regard to the approval of the draft procedures, we'll take that in reverse order and see if we can address the case first. Could I entertain a motion for the amendment of the agenda so that we hear the old business first?
I'd like to make a motion to move the item of old business up to
The next
before
agenda
new
item.
business
Correct.
on the agenda.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. The ayes have it, unanimous? Okay. So I'm going to call case number 2024-02, Genesis Velez Sanchez. Genesis Velez Sanchez, 200 Cold Springs Road, apartment B101. Before I begin, I want to address something that we didn't have an opportunity to address earlier meetings. We have a new commission here, new members that have started here in January. Some members have been here before. I'm a little bit troubled by some of the behavior we had. Attorney Hoyler, during a session when we closed for public comment, this commission, having new members, was deliberating. And you had an outburst during that time. We didn't respond to it at the time. Several members came up to me and approached me and indicated that they were a little bit troubled. Some people took it as an attempt to intimidate the members, where you've yelled out into the audience that you were objecting to the way we were deliberating, that you were going to appeal the decision before the decision was rendered. I want you to understand, you're an attorney of the court. I am also as well. I would expect you to handle yourself the same way you would in a courtroom. These members deserve better. They're volunteering their time to hear cases. We've heard cases on behalf of your client where we were ruled in favor of your client. We heard nothing from you. We've had cases where we ruled against your client. Nothing from you. I just expect you to be able to handle yourself more appropriately and professionally going forward, particularly if we close comment. No other outbursts from anybody in the audience. Excuse me. What we're trying to do here is, it's a very difficult decision to make involving people's livelihoods, their lives, their conditions that they're living under. It's not something we take lightly, nor do we expect any outbursts from anyone, whether it be the claimant or the respondent. So going forward, when we do close for public comment, you have to understand that we're going to be deliberating here for on the claim and the defenses to the claim, understanding that no outbursts, and we should handle yourself professionally. Understood?
Absolutely. May I address the commission briefly?
Sure.
Sure.
It's Ryan Hoyler from Robinson & Cole. I guess I'm not representing anyone right now. I absolutely understand and accept the admonishment. That said, I have an obligation to my client to represent them as hopefully as I can when I hear the commission deliberating on things that were not part of evidence and raising facts and using those facts as part of deliberation that were not part of evidence. I have an obligation to object. And with all due respect, if this was a courtroom, I would do exactly the same thing.
To respond to that, if you have an objection to that, would be the time to take that would be during the course of either an appeal or during the presentation of evidence. It is closed for public comment, which means it's also closed. You're able to watch our deliberations, but you're not able to comment on those deliberations. So I would ask you to refrain from doing that, and I would hope that you would agree to that, so that when we do deliberate, whether it's in favor or not in favor of your client, there's no more further outbursts. Because again, I've received a number of complaints from some of the newer members saying, is this what we expect going forward? Or was that an attempt to try to intimidate us? Okay?
Understood. It was absolutely not an attempt to try to intimidate the commission. I have no anticipation of doing that again. But again, if I do hear the commission deliberating after comments have closed on facts that are not in the record, I will object.
You will not object. You will take it up an appeal. You will not comment, object, or otherwise during the period where it is closed. Understood? We have rules here. Those are the rules.
Understood.
Okay, before we take the next case, or I'm sorry, and we're taking the next case, but I just wanted to do something to read something that I've read in prior hearings to help guide the process. This Fair Rent Commission is a commission of limited jurisdiction and limited scope. So understanding this, I mean, I know that this may be your first hearing, so just understand this is that we make a determination whether the rent being charged is excessive. Understanding that and determining whether a rental charge or a proposed increase in a rental charge is so excessive, this commission looks to all the circumstances as to what would be harsh and unconscionable. The commission considers a number of circumstances applicable to the type of accommodations or your rental, and those are as follows. They look to see this. These are the factors that we consider so it can help guide you in presenting your claim and responding to the questions of this commission. The commission looks at the rents charged for the same number of rooms in other housing accommodations in the same and in other areas of the municipality, so Rocky Hill. We look at the sanitary conditions existing in the housing accommodations in question, the number of bathtubs or showers, flush water closets, kitchen sinks, and lavatory basins available in the to the occupants thereof. We look at the services, furniture, furnishings, and equipment supplied therein. They look at the size and number of bedrooms contained therein, repairs necessary to make such accommodations reasonably livable for the occupants accommodated therein, the amount of, the amount of taxes and overhead expenses thereof, whether the accommodations are in compliance with the ordinances and the general statute of the state of Connecticut relating to health and safety, the income of the petitioner and the availability of accommodations, the availability of utilities, damages done to the premises by the tenant caused by other than ordinary wear and tear, the amount and frequency of increases in rental charges, and finally, whether and the extent the income from any increase in rental charges has been or will be reinvested in the improvements to the accommodations. So these are just guiding factors that we look at. Again, we're of limited jurisdiction. The reason why I mention that to you is right out of the gate, there is something, of course, as you go forward, we're entitled to hear your claim. I want you to know that we've received your complaint, and I can tell you that the commissioners up here have reviewed it. They've spent some time reviewing it offline, and they may have some questions of you. Of course, they may not have some questions. Don't read into it one way or the other, because we have a pretty comprehensive packet and complaint you've submitted. We've also received Robinson and Calder, the counsel for the concierge, their submission in response to theirs. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Okay. Let me, if I can right now, I can ask you to come up to the microphone if I could and identify yourself for the record so that you can be sworn in.
Absolutely. My name is Genesis. Sorry.
Name for the record.
Genesis Milagros Velez Sanchez.
Do you swear that all the information you provide tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Apologize for the cost tonight, so.
It's okay.
In any event, so the way this is going to proceed is, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to review any of the hearings online. Have you at all?
I have
Okay.
no idea. It's
All
my
right,
first
so
time.
what you're going to do is you're going to present your claim and essentially try to explain to why you're here before the commission. Essentially, what is your ask of the commission? What do you want of the commission? And the commission may or may not have any questions. After you're done, in addition to that, you're able to call witnesses. If you have any witnesses here today, you're able to call them. After you're done with your, what they would call case in chief or your claim, the respondent, in this case concierge or their representative, which would be their attorney, will have an opportunity to either cross-examine you, ask you or your witnesses some questions, to which you would, if you're able to, respond. After you're done and the cross-examination is done, and you don't have any further testimony, you have an opportunity to respond further without any questions. After you're done, you sit down. Your case is, you rest your case, if you will. The concierge will put on their evidence and their case to defending the claim. After they're done, and we may have some questions of them as well, may not. After they're done, you have the opportunity to ask questions or respond to the presentation that they gave. If they have witnesses to call, they can do that as well, but you have an opportunity to respond. After that is done, concierge may have a brief response to that or pre-statement presenting on what the scope of the cross-examination was. After that is done, we're going to close public comment. And what you'll see here, it's what I was referring to earlier, is this commission, the board, will deliberate, not privately, not behind closed doors, will deliberate openly. At that point, there's no further testimony, there's no more submission of evidence. Whatever's been brought before us, that's what we're going to decide. So you'll hear us, you'll see some conversations going amongst the commissioners to find out to arrive at what conclusion they may have, with regard to your claim or any of the defenses to your claim. And there might be a series of motions. After that, the commission will come to a vote and make its decision. After that vote, you may not have, both sides may or may not have rights to appeal, depending on what you want to do. I can't advise you on that. But that's essentially how it goes.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
No, not so far.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I may just jump ahead here before you get a chance, but I'll still let you talk. I just want to, so I can focus my attention here. It says, in our packet, we've read it, the ask of the commission, it appears, and correct me if I'm wrong, it appears that there's two things that are being asked of it. One being a reimbursement of 1 month's rent for the ongoing water-related issues in the amount of $1,779. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the second part of that is the option, you're asking of the commission the option of breaking your lease?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else?
No.
Okay. Attorney Slater, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I can at least speak to the second part of it. Because this commission is a commission of limited jurisdiction and scope, we can't decide on your ability to break the lease. There is housing court in the Superior Court level, where or otherwise known as landlord-tenant court. They may or may be able to decide that, but that's not something we can give or grant as for a relief, whether someone is held to the lease or whether they could break the lease. We just can't do that. It's not within our jurisdiction or power to do that.
And for the record, that's correct, that it's your jurisdiction is limited to what you indicated before when you were outlining the procedures.
Okay. So to the extent that any testimony or evidence relating to the breaking of the lease, in that portion of your claim, we won't be able to hear that, but we can hear evidence or testimony with regard to your claim for a reimbursement of 1 month's rent for the ongoing water-related issues. Understood?
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any
absolutely.
questions of us?
No questions.
Okay, so I'm gonna, if you will, I'm not gonna steal your thunder, although we have your claim here and we've read it, I want to give you an opportunity to present it.
Okay. Good afternoon, good evening. It's nice meeting you. Everybody is a little nerve-wracking. So I moved into the concierge apartments in August of 2023. When I initially moved in, I signed my lease. My unit still wasn't ready. I still had some issues with the toilets, the hot water heater, everything that you can see here. fast forward, here we are in June. I'm still encountering inconsistencies with my hot water. I can go days without hot water, and when I would put in a request, they would close it or it would be canceled. I can call management over 20 times, and they do not answer. The only way I get a response is if I go in person, and a lot of times that's difficult because I work from 7:45 in the morning to 5 p.m. at night. So it's just a little hard to get that communication piece from them. I'm still experiencing my kitchen sink. There's no cold water. It's pure hot water unless for some reason the water heater isn't working throughout the entire unit. With that being said, I'm constantly having to raise my electrical bill because the unit is all electric, including my heating. So my monthly bill is over $800 a month, and it's insane. I'm barely home. But that's because I'm constantly using the hot water to do the dishes whenever it's available. Honestly, I will never rent from here again. I understand the part of not having the option to break the lease. Like, you guys can't help me with that part. I understand that, and honestly, I mean, my lease is almost up in September. That's fine. But I feel like if I'm paying my rent every month, it's expected every month, I should be able to have my daughter live comfortably. She's only 2. I shouldn't have to boil hot water just to take my daughter a shower in a cold winter night, or because she was running around, playing around, sweating. I shouldn't have to go that mile when I'm paying for that service. I've tried countless times to talk to the management and concierge to see what we can figure out. They, at some point, offered me temporarily to use the bathroom in another unit. But that was because I had called the police. The health department was closed on the weekend. I had no hot water. It was winter. It was snowing. So I called them to see if they were able to help me out or be able to put me through with the health department. So the maintenance director, he just offered me that apartment. When the cop left, I ended up finding out, and I have the text messages as well there, I'm sure, that the unit was, in fact, not ready. The unit did not have hot water, so it was a mistake. He apologized for it. And this is a unit that they were offering me until they were
Was this last August?
This was no, this was in December or January, between those months, because it was snowing. And so, yeah, I've tried just countless times to talk to concierge. Up until this day, I still have the issues with a leaking toilet. I have my tub that's cracked. I'm sure there's mold in the walls because the water has been like that for months. They keep making appointments to come and fix it. I have to call out of work. They never come. They never pick up the phone. Today is an instance. I had my fiance at home for me. I was working. I couldn't pick up the call, but I gave the maintenance, Tom is his name, his number. They set up a time. He never called. He never showed up. He never answered the text message. And that was just today. And so, yeah, that's why I'm requesting the $1,779 for a month worth of rent. I feel like my issues have been much longer than that, but I just feel like that's just fair, just to get it over with. My lease is up in September. I'm looking to move forward from this place. It's been hell. And I don't think I have anything further, to be honest.
Question, it says, now, when did you first move in? You moved in...
August 24th. That's when I signed my lease, but I didn't move in until August 26th because neither of the toilets were working.
Okay, so you, your first maintenance request appears to be from August 31st relating water issues. Was it just the leaking, or was there hot water issues back in August 31st?
Yeah, there was hot water issues. The issue then was that the water was scorching hot. Like, it was way too hot. It would cause burn marks. I couldn't shower my daughter. And they said that they were going to fix that with the water heater. I guess they can control
Adjust
that.
the
Like the
temperature?
temperature. Yes, adjust the temperature.
What is there, after August 31st, you said the temperature, or at that time, it was very hot to the point where it was scalding. What did they do? Was it remedied?
So the director at that time, Roy, his name was Roy, he stated that he would just reset and adjust the temperature, but I mean, it would hit my daughter. She's 2. She has reflux, so when she's drinking her bottle, she can randomly just throw up in the middle of the night, and that's what she would do. So that's how I would know that in the middle of the night, between the hours of maybe like 11 at night till 5 in the morning, that's when the hot water would be really scorching hot. And I told him this, and I showed him like, look, I have to have my daughter this way. The remedy to him was resetting the water heater, but that didn't work.
When you say it didn't work, I mean, did it ever come to a point where the hot water was a suitable temperature? I mean, always,
Not until after I started experiencing, so if that was August, I would say around December, towards the end of November, around December, that's when I started experiencing no hot water randomly. And that's when, whenever I would have hot water, it was at least somewhat manageable. But it would get sometimes, like, it's still between the hours of the nights that I needed to use it, sometimes just randomly for my daughter, it would still be scorching hot.
okay.
So relative to this, have you received any reimbursement from the agency at all, from Concierge?
Yes, Concierge put a credit into my account because I'm not sure if you've seen the email I was requesting that compensation, but they, if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere between $200 and $250. I had declined it because I wanted the full month's rent, but you know they let it in my account. But yes, and if I'm not mistaken, that was I want to say between January or February, one of those 2 months. It was in the beginning of this year.
February 9th? Perhaps I'm looking at
February,
your ledger.
yes.
Exhibit A to your complaint. Okay. This water issue, and it came to the point where it was, I guess it was really hot, and then it went in the opposite direction at a certain point where it was no longer any hot water.
Exactly.
Is that still the case today?
Yes. No, because the hot water isn't scorching hot anymore. It's manageable now because I called Eversource and I asked them what my temperature was at, and they said that they were able to lower it from their end, but I still had to contact the maintenance. So I did that. I went in person and I talked to Melissa, the management there, and I let her know that I wanted it lowered a little bit because of the issues that I was experiencing. I guess she said that it affected the whole unit, but I don't deal with the super scorching hot water anymore. It's just not the inconsistency of not having any hot water at all. So I guess I'm dealing with half the problem.
Okay. Relative to this concern, how many times did you try to meet with maintenance that caused you not to be able to go to work?
I lost track. Minimum 10 times. That's just minimum. But I lost track of that.
And is the hot water heater in your unit?
No.
But it is electric? And
Yes.
it's connected to your electric bill?
Yes, that's correct. I'm not sure how they do that, but yeah.
There's a notation that indicates that, was it accurate that your water and electric bill were combined, correct, for billing purposes?
No, so my water is actually separate. That's billed by the concierge. I guess the UBI is what they use. I'm not really sure, but that's what I pay it to. My electric bill and my heating is together. That's separate.
Okay. So a notation, what's the, have you ever experienced a water bill in excess of $800 a month?
Yes,
Just water?
just water. No, not water. Heat. That's my electric bill. My water bill is ranging from like $100 to $130 a month.
Okay, so how big is your apartment?
It's a 2-bedroom apartment, 2 bathrooms. It's 1 floor. I mean, it's maybe 900 feet or square feet.
1225, it's noted here.
Yep.
It's all 25. Okay.
Did you speak with concierge about the water bill being that high?
Yeah, but they said that it was normal for the winter months because I was using my heaters. That's what they stated.
$800 for an apartment?
Exactly my response to them, but it's almost impossible to talk to them, to be honest.
Do we have a copy? We have a copy of that, right?
I believe so, yes.
What did you have the temperature set at? Just curious. during the
It
winter
was
months?
always between 75 and 80, almost always 75. If it was to the point where we would receive the emails to have like our waters running so the pipes wouldn't freeze, then I would keep it at 80. but 75 and 80 throughout the whole winter. And that would be on automatic.
How often did you receive emails to keep your heat on higher than normal to make it so the pipes wouldn't freeze?
I would say like maybe twice a month. They would tell us to have the water running because of that as well. To avoid that, they would tell us to close the garage doors. But I guess, or better yet, it was whenever there was a snowstorm, because that's when we would receive it.
Okay.
If I could ask one question, I'm a little confused. Did you say that that the electric company was able to help you with the water temperature?
Yes, so they're able to tell me what the temperature is. So when I called them because of my bill, I found it to be extremely high. They looked into the history of the apartment, and they stated that it was normal for the bill to be, like the usage to be that high and the bill to be that high in the winter months. That my temperature, if I'm not mistaken, it was like at 168, or it was, they told me the number of the temperature and that they were able to lower that if I needed it to be lowered. But that came into play when the health department went to my house, and they were actually taking the temperature of my water. And according to the health department, I guess the water was supposed to be legally a 99 or something of that sort, and it was under that. It was lukewarm. The water was lukewarm. So that's when I called. She advised me to call Eversource to see, and yeah, they advised that they're able to lower like what I guess my usage is or something like that. But that I would have to call concierge to physically, I guess, lower it with the water heater itself.
But they weren't taking action that controlled the temperature of your
From
water.
their end, no,
Yeah.
yeah. They basically needed my permission to do so, but it physically needed to be done by by maintenance or by concierge.
They were just saying they're just trying to help you with the amount of usage you were paying for.
Exactly, yes, because they tried to offer me a program, but I couldn't do it because it's such a big apartment. It was, I guess, over 10 apartments per building. If it maxed out, I didn't qualify for the program. So that's why they were giving me the options of what I could have done. Right now, I'm enrolled in the New Start program. So instead of having to pay the $800, I'm paying $390, but my balance is still there.
Did any of the maintenance or any of the other representatives from concierge indicate that the water pump had broke?
No, never. In fact, I came to find out that it was supposedly replaced last year per the health department. She wasn't understanding why I was still having those issues because supposedly they had just had it replaced.
When you say it replaced, to make sure I'm clear, are you talking about the water pump or are you talking about the water heater?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Something was replaced. So she wasn't understanding why I was having those issues still.
So just to clarify, you've tried to get the health department out several times. They did find that the hot water wasn't hot enough once.
Multiple times.
Multiple
She went
times.
back multiple times, yes, and she was in contact with Melissa. That's the only time where a contractor actually came out, and even then, the problem is still consistent. But the health department went out to my apartment multiple times and multiple different instances, found that it was not in the legal limit that it was supposed to.
What was the issue you had today that you said the guy didn't show up, the maintenance guy?
So right now I have the main bathroom that's in my room where I sleep out with my daughter. That bathroom, every time it flushes, it leaks, like it splatters completely. So he was supposed to come for that, and the hot water, like it's getting extremely hot when I do the dishes. It's unreasonable. I have to use the dishwasher instead, and that's not my preference. So he was supposed to come for the leaking toilet, the hot water in the sink, and the cracked tub. We have a stand-up tub, and the bottom tile is cracked. So when the water is running the whole time, like it's inevitable to have the water like stop from going in there. And when the maintenance originally went and seen it, because I guess that's what they do. When you put in a request first, the first visit is they assess the issue, and then they'll come back for the fixing. So they seen the issue, and they said that was a priority. It was an emergency because the water leaking into the wall was going to cause mold, and they're not even sure how long it's already been like that. So it was supposed to be expedited, it still hasn't happened. So that was supposed to get fixed today. He never called.
When was that originally requested?
Yes, yes.
When was it originally brought to their attention?
Is it okay if I take out?
Because it would have been
my phone?
a new complaint.
So when I submitted this, if I'm not mistaken, it was in March. The leaking toilet, that was the beginning of May. I have it on my phone, the maintenance request, because it's still pending. They keep closing it, opening it, closing it, and opening it. And the cracked tub, I put it in when I put in the leaked toilet, and that was also in May.
Thank you.
Did you go any significant periods of time without hot water? I mean, I'm noticing a lot of complaints in the January timeframe.
Yeah, sometimes it'll be 2 days at a time. And it would be like on the coldest days when it was like really snowing, and it was mostly between the months of January, February, and December. Like those 3 months, the really cold months. That's where I was experiencing it more consistently.
When you made the complaints, were any of these complaints? Obviously, you did it through the portal. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I did it through the portal, but I also had the director's number, and I would text him as well to let him know because that's what they told me to do. But that resulted in
Did they ever give any explanation for the December, January months?
no. I never got an explanation for that. All they say is, we're trying to get contractors out. We're aware of the issue. We're trying to get contractors out. And at some point, I got so frustrated, I Googled contractors. And I'm like, listen, there's 24-hour plumbers available. What's your excuse? That's when I called the police, and then from there. But no, they never gave me an explanation to that.
How many days in the month of December do you recall there being no hot water? I know you said it was sporadically throughout the month.
In December, I can say, not consistently. I can say I could have gone 7-10 days without hot water. And that's December alone.
Okay. What about January?
January, maybe like 5 days, 5 to 6 days. Because it was majority of the time it was in the weekend that I would experience that.
Okay. In those months, the days of those months that you just indicated, January and December, when you did have hot water, did it go back? Was it the scalding water that you talked about earlier, or would it go back to just hot water?
No, it was scalding. So, like the issues was primarily in those winter months, and that's where it would go back to just scorching hot. And again, it would be like in the middle of the night. It wouldn't be throughout the day. So, let's say on a Monday I had hot water at 3:00 in the afternoon. It was fine. It was okay. Now the problem came when it was like a late night. That's where it would be scorching hot. But I was still experiencing that between those months.
Were you able to balance it out with some of the cold water as well, so that it would be usable?
No, because that was the problem. That's the problem that I'm experiencing now with my kitchen. So whenever the water was scorching hot, I didn't have the option. Like I could turn it completely to cold. It didn't go cold, and that's the same issue that I'm having now with my sink water. It's hot, whether it's on the cold side or the hot side. It's scorching hot. That's why I have to stop so much. So it's similar to what I'm experiencing with the sink.
One thing that I've noticed actually with a lot of your work items that you put in, they get switched to canceled. Have you ever canceled your requests?
No, sir. In fact, they continue up until this day. I'm not able to access my past maintenance requests. I was trying to access them for evidence for you guys, and I went a whole month asking for them until I got pissed off. And I went over there, and that's when they finally gave it to me. But, until this day, I'm not able to access any of the maintenance requests from January, February, March, April. I can't access none of them. Right now, all I can access is some from May and then the recent ones from this month. That's it.
And just
Did they ever? Go ahead.
just to confirm that, so you've never canceled any of your
No,
work
I've never
requests?
canceled.
Okay, thank you.
I was just curious, did they ever give you a reason why you couldn't get cold water? Like, how could
Yes, they did actually. So as far as my sink, they never explained it for the tub, but as far as my sink, what they said was, according to the plumbers and the maintenance, where the sink is at, I guess they had to snake it, but it's so backed up that they have to make a hole in my daughter's room, which is right behind the kitchen, to access that plumbing, I guess, and be able to take whatever's in there out. But that it wasn't a good idea because it could take anywhere from weeks to months, and this was Kevin, the maintenance, that told me. It could take anywhere from weeks to months, and my daughter's room would be unavailable because of that big hole on the wall. So that was the solution for that, and I guess it was just backed up. I'm not sure with what or.
I think in one report, you said there was also a hole in the wall in a bathroom.
Yes, that they fixed it. It was where the toilet was at. There was a pipe, and I don't know how. I guess it was previously fixed, but it just came right off. I'm not really sure how, but I noticed it. And I'm not an insect person, so I know any holes can lead to insects and stuff like that. So they went and they put, I guess, something white on the wall to cover it up, and they did fix that next to the toilet.
February, just have a question. So you told me about December, no hot water at certain days. You told me about, which I think you said 7 to 10 days, and it was about 5-6 days, I think, about 5 days in January. Did you have any similar experiences in any of the other months that we have not discussed about?
Yeah, recently. I'm still experiencing no hot water. I'm still experiencing that till this day. It will be periodically. I would come home from work to shower, and I can't shower because the water is super cold. And I would put in a request, and they answer hours later telling me that they're going to reset the boiler and to give it a couple of hours. Next thing you know, it's the next day. I'm back at work. So I'm still experiencing that.
Okay, I know it's difficult and probably varied by the months, I would assume. But are you able to tell me, in your best estimate, are you able to quantify how many days you didn't have hot water in? Let's go month by month. Let's back up. Certainly got hot water, I guess, when you moved in. It was too hot.
Right.
At what point did you not get hot water? What month?
In December, I would like to say that's when I started experiencing it.
Okay, so we talked that 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
5 days you believe you went without hot water in January. Let's talk about February. How
in
many days?
February, I would say maybe like 10 days, and that was randomly as well. It was mixed between just random weekdays and then sometimes in the weekends, complete weekends as well.
For example, in February, when you were experiencing random days where in the minute you're getting hot water, you're not getting hot water, did you call each time or either call, text, or submit every time that you didn't get hot water, or were there days that you didn't, but you just kind of lived with it?
So it would depend. If I had already put in a request and they never like checked up on it, I would just leave it open. And I didn't follow up on it. It got to the point where Roy, the maintenance director, he was becoming very rude and aggressive towards me, so I just stopped that.
Okay. What about March? Any days
March,
without?
March, no. I can't say in March I had any.
April.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Did you have something more to say?
In March and April, I don't think I experienced any. I started experiencing it again in May. May, I had maybe like 4 days, maybe like once a week I would experience that. And then now in June, is it okay if I take out my calendar on my phone? Because I actually... I left early from work. So June, on the 4th, and on the 6th and 7th, I experienced as well the not having any hot water. They closed the ticket, said that they were resetting the boiler.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you have questions? I think you were
No, I have questions for
another area or
Another
for
area.
concierge?
the concierge.
Okay. I found what I was referring to earlier. I found in your submission packet that I'd reviewed before, I just didn't have my fingertips, your Eversource bills. So I have a bill, let's see if we can get, I have the due date, but let me see if I can get the statement date, January 31st, 2024. Amount due, $2,801.95. I have the next month's bill after that, which would be, actually, I have statement date, March 1st, 2024. The bill is now $3,577.97. And those are the two, I think, bills that you had submitted as part of your claim packet. I got to ask you, before we get into it, what's your understanding that for the Eversource charges? Is it
Honestly, I haven't even come to an understanding. This is the first time that, like, in a couple of months, I've had a bill that big with them. All they've explained to me is that that's a normal rate for that apartment for the winter months. But I know it's also coming from the fact that whenever the hot water is running, that's all I can use. And,
Okay.
yeah.
So one question relative to that. So the bill is currently cumulative, from what I read, and that's the reason why you're on the Fresh Start program, because the bills have basically been exceeding your budget to be able to pay them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Let me ask you, how, so, all right, we have the first bill that we had for $2,800, 2801.95, which was a January 31st, 2024 bill. Had you been paying the bills prior to that balance?
Yeah, it was zeroed out. So I had asked Eversource to conduct an investigation to see if they were able to see if maybe another unit was using my electricity. And that came about because in 2021, I was recently pregnant. I had moved into Windsor, and I experienced that same issue, but it was a landlord situation. At the end of that, it ended up being that I was paying for the entire house. So I was already aware of, like, looking out for the high usage and the high bills. And Eversource had given me a credit for everything that I had paid for that time. That credit made it until I moved into concierge. It paid every month. My bills were $200, $100 here.
So,
so
tell
I
me the
paid my bill.
$2,800 bill, the $2,800 bill that you got at the end of January, beginning of February. You mean to tell me that $2,800 bill represented just 1 month of charges?
The $2,800 bill, no, because I did move in August, so it represented January. It represented it from December. At that point in time, it was excessive. I couldn't afford it.
Okay, so the $2,800 bill, so I'm looking at, it says, amount now due on February 28th, 2024, which is 2801.95. The statement date on that same bill is January 31st, 2024. So I'm seeing this as 2801.95. What I'm trying to figure out, and I think you may have answered the question, but I just want to confirm that that $2,800 bill represents charges incurred for the month of December and January combined.
Correct.
So on average, for 2 months, it was $1,400 a month?
Correct.
Okay, so nothing carried over from any other prior months?
No, not at all. I was always on top of my bill, especially with that credit.
When you were getting cold water, you couldn't get any hot water, what was your remedy? Did you just leave the hot water running until you got
Yeah, that's what they told me to do. And honestly, I went to Google, and that's what Google told me to do, and that's what I tried to do. But when I seen it wasn't working after maybe like an hour or so, I would turn it off and I would just boil some water to shower myself and my daughter.
So just to clarify in the electric bill, it looks like you're using approximately 3,300 kilowatt hours. So basically, in the month of February, it looks like you used, in January, you used 3,259 kilowatt hours in that month as an average. And so it appears that the monthly bill was about just shy of $900 per month. So it looks like January and February and December is really what is combined for the $2,800 balance.
three or four times? Yeah, good point. Yeah, because I'm looking at that too. It says, I got monthly kilowatt usage on page 2 of that invoice. September at 13, October at 959, November 874, and then it triples to December 2425.
Yep.
January's 3237, February's 3259.
Yeah.
So those months, December, January, February, March, you would get emails from concierge asking you to turn the heat up and to make the water run?
To have the water running, yeah, and to keep the heaters on, to not turn them off because it could freeze the pipes, and I guess it would lead to other things. I own 2 garages. They would also tell us to have the garages closed, and that's outside, to, I guess, avoid the cold air from going into the pipes or something like that. But I can even pull those emails up right now.
And they told you to keep the temperature between 75 and 80 degrees?
They didn't specify what temperature to keep it at. They just said to keep the heaters on to avoid that.
And when you asked Eversource, they said that that wattage usage for that apartment was normal
For the history of that specific apartment, that's what they stated, yes.
during those months?
During those months, that's correct.
What was your water bill do you during those months? December, January, February?
$98, $80. It wasn't too excessive. I think the highest I've reached recently was maybe a 125 with some change. But it
these-
wasn't excessive.
Are these Eversource bills, I mean, I know it's been a while since we've been able to have the hearing, because I know that we had to reschedule it a number of times. Have these balances been paid?
I'm working, that's why I'm in the New Start program, so I'm working towards it. So basically, with every payment I make of the $390, they'll do a forgiveness towards the past due that I have. The balance is greater now, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm working towards paying that. I can't pay $800 a month.
Understood. Approximately how much is the balance now?
Is it okay if I check?
Yes.
While you're checking, a quick question. Have you paid your rent on time?
Yes, I pay my rent every month on time.
Thank you. One additional question, which I don't know. Did they give you an estimate as to how much the utility cost would be for your apartment before you moved in?
No.
Thank you.
So with the payment, okay, so right now my balance is at $3,918.58. The total balance, that's not including the premium.
Okay. And did they conduct an electrical separation study to make sure that you're only paying for
They
your
did not,
electrical?
even though my account had that history of what happened in 2021 with the other landlord, they refused to. Honestly, I had to fight for that one too, for them to actually do something about it. But all they did was look up the history in the unit and just say, oh, that's normal, and that's it.
Did you call Eversource and say, like, my bill went from a couple $100 to
Yes, multiple
$1,400,
times.
$2,400? What was the response?
That it was normal. Suck it up, basically.
Did they ask if you were leaving your windows open, you were running the water?
Yes,
if
they
there's any
did ask that.
problems?
They did ask that. That's why they offered, I guess it's called the weatherization program. And that's where they come out, or not they, the company comes out, contractors come out, and they'll go around the unit and they'll check the windows. They'll make sure like the heat isn't escaping one way or another. So they'll make sure that the hot, warm air is staying in. But when I did that and I called the program, they needed permission from concierge because it's a bigger company, and it's over 10 apartments per the building. So they needed their approval from it. The lady stated that she was gonna call and get in contact with them, but by past notices that they never get back to her.
Let me ask you this: there's been complaints, but it's not saying concierge. But sometimes people have complaints saying that they can't regulate the heat. The heat's too much in their apartment, and what they do is they open the windows. Is that something that occurred in your apartment at all?
Not at all. We try to keep the heat because it would take so long for the apartment to actually warm up. I feel like it would take a full 8 hours minimum for the apartment to actually reach that like 75, 70 temperature. That's why I would always keep it at that, because I learned fast that if I would turn it off, the apartment would get cold instantly. And then between one of the times that maintenance supposedly went to go fix and they never fixed anything, I was upset. That was actually the same visit that the cop was there. I pointed to Roy, like it's not normal for my heat to be for my heat to be leaving this way. And then he realized that I have a porch door. That porch door comes with the opening slide. It comes with a screen, and it comes with another glass. I guess that second glass is supposed to keep the warm air in. That's the purpose of that glass. I didn't have that until January.
I don't think that would I don't think that would do that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
not
the
sure, but
raise
that's
that
that's
level.
what he stated. So
But,
yeah.
and you were advised, just correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the other commissioners may have asked you this question, but you were advised to in order to get on the days, for example, to get hot water, and so that the pipes won't freeze, you were advised to keep the water running.
Right, and that did not work.
And who advised you that?
That was management sending the emails.
Okay.
So that would be, I guess, the leasing office.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the water, is it electric heat for the water?
So this is where I have
That's where
some
the-
questions that I think are not,
Got it, understood.
that are, I don't think that a tenant can answer, but somebody who knows the building a bit better could. So,
If you
So
know, do
according
you
to
know?
my understanding, the apartment is all electric. That's including the heat. However, the only thing, utilities that I pay separate, my utilities consist of, or my bills consist of rent. Then they charge me for trash, pest, and water separately, or they include that in the rent, but that's a separate charge. And then I pay for my electrical, which has my heat included. So to my understanding, my heat, hot water,
Yeah, we're just trying to
everything.
find out what's heating the hot water. Is it an electric water heater or gas or oil? That's what
So
we're
I'm
trying to find
assuming it's an electric water heater just because supposedly it's electric, but it's not in the house, so it's kind of hard, or in the apartment, it's kind of hard
Understood.
to say.
And you're not noticing the water portion of your bill spikes when the electric spikes?
No, yeah, it stays
They're not
like I
running
can.
together, the
Right,
bills.
no, I can't complain about my water bill. It's not excessive. And that's even with sometimes having the water running, waiting for the heat to come.
Do you still have your electric bill up on your phone?
Yeah, I do.
What was your monthly usage for this past month? Does it say what the monthly kilowatts used?
Let me see here.
It may appear on the second page of your bill.
Okay, thank you. June? Or
Yeah.
would you like May?
June or May, whichever.
June, so as of June, I'm at 814. And May, 1,384.
Yeah, just drop
Air
right off.
conditioning.
Yeah, but
And I do have the AC running, yes.
but
The air-
it's 2,000 kilowatts lower.
Yeah.
Indeed, if that, if not more in some months.
So
Wow. Okay. Do you have any other, anything to offer, or I don't know if we have any questions, but do you have any other witnesses other than yourself?
I have my fiance. He's experienced almost all of it firsthand with me, especially the frustration with maintenance and just trying to civilly handle the situation. All we wanted, like I said, we pay rent. All we want to do is live comfortable. So yeah, just him. Jose Lopez is his name.
Okay, and he lives with you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, it's not an obligation, but if you want to, if he has something to add to this, okay. Then I guess do you have anything more before your fiancé's?
No.
Okay.
No further.
Thank you.
Cross-examine for now.
Well, we'll now let them do it together.
Could you state your name for the address of
Jose,
the record?
Jose Juan Lopez Jr.
You swear or affirm whatever the case may be that all the information you provide tonight is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was just frustrating listening to her talk up here because she wasn't saying everything. I experienced everything. I worked for the town of Simsbury, and I worked for Public Works. There was a lot of times I came out of work, working double shifts, plowing snow over there, and have to come back to shower with cold water or boiled water. And sometimes we're building basins out there, so I would have to scrub cement out of me with boiled water just to, be able to shower the right way. The maintenance as well, the heat, we ran it all winter. It was nonstop running. Like she said, the apartment didn't get hot unless we ran the heat the whole time. It was 24/7 running the heat. They said it was the door, the screen door was the problem. We also have in our front door, there's a little crack that leads to the hallway. That hallway in the winter, they don't turn on the heaters until probably a few weeks into winter. That they leave windows open and there's windows broken in that hallway as well. That it leads that hallway to get real cold in the winter, and in the summer it gets real hot. So in the summer, probably these few weeks has been real hot. We would leave our apartment and experience like a 100-degree temperature hit us. in the hallway, where when we go back in our apartment, it's like cooler. But once we go out there with the baby, it's like you can suffocate out there in the hallway. So and at night, they leave the windows wide open. Some people knock the screens out the window, and the windows then don't have a screen where we have to watch the baby when she's running in the hallway, because she could probably fall out that window or something. Like right now, we can go over there, the first floor, and the first floor is a pretty big drop from the pavement, and if she was to fall out that window, she probably wouldn't even be here. So I don't know what else. It's just a lot of things we're dealing with there, like from when we moved in to still dealing with there. The toilet, like she said, it's been leaking. We've put in maintenance requests for like 2 weeks now. Today I spoke with the Tom guy. He told me that he asked me what time can I be there for the work, and I told him I'm here now. You can come now. If not, you let me know a time. And he told me that he was working on a call right now, work order, that he'll hit me up after. So I said, okay, just give me a call after. If I'm not here, I'll probably be 20 minutes out. I never heard nothing back all day today, till now.
So one question I have, are you on the lease on the apartment?
If I'm on the lease, no.
You okay? So the second question, relative to the communication with the person who needed to work on your apartment, do they have authorization to come in and work on the issues if they need to without you guys being there?
Yes, we told them to just give us a call, let us know, give us at least a heads up that they're coming. We also have cameras in the front door that will let us know that somebody's there, somebody's knocking, and we can speak through them through the camera. But we don't see nobody come to the door. So when they text us telling us, that they tried to come, we go back into our camera footage and we check and we tell them nobody came. We have cameras 24/7 in our house, in front of our house door.
Thank you.
So a lot of times they lie to us. They complete the work orders without letting us know that, hey, we tried to go over there, but they never did. They completed it last week twice, and we had to put in a new work order for the water, for the toilet leaking, and it's like a
Yeah, that's the reason I was
non-consistent thing.
asking if you had canceled any of the orders, because I noticed a lot of cancellations
Yeah.
on it, and so this is why I have
Yeah, we noticed that too. We noticed a lot of complete work orders when nothing's gotten complete in the house, especially the sink. She has to do the dishes with like boiling hot water. I tried to wash a spoon the other day and burned my finger. I'm like, holy, it's ridiculous. Like you probably have to wear like a glove or something just to do dishes.
Anyone else have any questions for the witness? Okay, do you have anything else to add before we into the next stage?
No, we just spoke to a few neighbors on our floor as well, and they let us know that there was their apartment as well, probably 2-3 weeks ago, was experiencing no hot water as well for like 2 days. We were talking in the hallway, and we were all just having a conversation about that it's just a consistent thing that goes on there. We were told that the water, I guess the water pump got replaced 2-3 times, and they just keep saying that it's the water pump, it's the water pump. I don't get how many times you got to change the water pump in a building, unless they're just using cheap parts, used parts. But definitely, it's not just our apartment; it's on our floor, probably the building. Just by talking to the people on our floor, I can imagine the whole building if we were to talk to everybody in the whole building.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so do you have anything else to add?
Oh, no, that's it.
Okay, so what we're going to do at this point, depending on, we're going to turn this to concierge. They may have some questions over to you, the attorney for concierge. If he does, he's going to be seated over at the end of this this table, and so he can speak into the mic. He's going to ask you questions.
Okay.
He may ask one or both you questions or not at all. Do you have any questions for the witnesses?
Just a handful.
Okay, all right. And then if you could just tell us which party, if you both want to step up to the microphone, might be more efficient.
That'd be
But if you can direct, so there's less confusion for the record, if you direct your attention to which witness and they'll answer. The only thing I would ask you to do it is, although this is being recorded, it's a lot cleaner of a record that you just wait for the attorney to ask his questions. When he's finished with the question, then answer it. There'll be a lot of times you may anticipate where he's going with his question, still let him finish, and then just answer, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ryan Hoyler, Robinson and Cole for for Century Hills Concierge. I'd like to hand the claimants a copy of Exhibit C to our April letter. It's the history of their maintenance requests, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's actually,
And I believe that list goes up through the beginning of March. It was submitted in April. So, Ms. Velez Sanchez, just to confirm, you stated that you kept the apartment at approximately 75 to 80 degrees throughout the winter?
Correct.
Okay. You stated that there were approximately 7 days in December, between 5 and 7 days in December, where you didn't have any hot water, correct?
Correct.
Did you make any complaints to concierge about that?
Not through the online portal because I wasn't aware of how to use it, but I would call in, yes, and I would text Roy as well.
So you say you weren't aware of how to use the portal in December.
Correct.
Did you make any claims through the portal in November?
I'm not sure if I did or not. I had to go in a couple of times for them to show me how to do it because I wasn't able to even access the website at all unless I had to go in through like the actual like concierge. Like if you're new looking to move in, I had to open it through there to then go to another website to then go to another website to then open it up and then so I wasn't really familiar with it. But it's possible. I'm not sure. I had to go to them a couple of times, to Melissa specifically.
So if I was to tell you that there were a total between August and March, or August and February, because I believe you made another claim at the beginning of March, there were a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days total where you made complaints about a lack of hot water. Would that sound right to you?
Yes, because they were aware. What they told me, Melissa specifically gave me Roy's number and told me to communicate any concerns that I had through them. They told me to, like, for the hot water, to text him directly, call him. He made that very clear at first as well, and so instead of becoming bothersome, that's when I decided to step back. So not only was I using the portal because, yes, that's for, I guess, all the tenants that live there, but I personally knew Roy. Me and him were talking. He had my number. I had his number, and that's how I would communicate with him. As well as Melissa, I would email her as well.
Attorney Hoyler,
That
if
was
I
their
could-
agreement.
Okay, if I could just clarify, your question was part of your question was you counted how many days in January that she called about
No, Mr. Chair. I counted how many days total between August and February.
August and February, okay.
So to clarify then, you made complaints through the portal about hot water in August, November, and January, but you
It's-
did not in December or February.
It's possible.
Okay. And you're aware that your lease requires maintenance requests to go through the portal?
I'm aware.
Okay.
Now,
So in January, when you got, I understand the health department became involved, is that correct?
correct.
And when the health department when that was done, did Justine Campbell from the health department ever reach out to you?
Yes.
And did she explain to you that the fix was done because there was a water pump that had to be fixed?
I don't recall exactly what she said. She sent me an email with, I guess, like the complete of the case. And I don't recall what part or what it was that got fixed because that's not my interest. My interest was in my hot water working.
Understood.
So I'm not sure what she stated was fixed or if she even stated it at all, but she did let me know that they were working on it and that according to somebody from corporate, it was completed.
Okay. And they didn't explain to you at the time then that the water in the building is heated through mass water boilers that are heated by gas, correct?
No.
So she didn't explain to you that there's no electricity going into the hot water anywhere in Building B?
No, nobody mentioned anything about that.
Okay. The emails that we've submitted from the health department indicate that it was a water issue that all of the units in Building B were without hot water, and then it was a water pump. And there's been previous testimony before the commission that all the hot water in all of the buildings is done via gas, not electricity.
According to Ms. Campbell, when she came into my unit multiple times, what she found strange was the fact that my unit was the only one that she had a complaint from. So with that being said, I was not aware of any other units. I became aware maybe last weekend when our neighbors saw my daughter, we started conversing, and she was like, hey, did you experience no hot water within the last couple of weeks? And we started conversing. That was the only time that I've heard of anybody else in the unit, because according to Melissa and according to Ms. Campbell and Roy, that was a problem that they were not aware of. It was non-existent to them. It's very rare. They didn't know what was going on with my apartment.
Okay, and to confirm, you said your water bills are normally between 80 and 130 per month, give or take?
Give or take.
And then just to confirm again, there's not been a spike in your water bills when there was a spike in the electrical bills, right?
Right.
Do you have a copy of one of the emails from concierge telling you to run your water?
Not a copy. I have my phone. I can show you.
That would be fine, yeah, if the commission's okay with it.
Yeah. Once you do it, if you could bring it by the,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I guess maybe bring it by the commission first.
Ideally, if you could email it just to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can print it.
And if you could email it to Kelly at the town.
Chairman, is it okay if I give my daughter some money so that she can go get some food?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All about priorities. All good.
The first one I found, I can keep this one.
Yeah, if you want to start over here.
So that's the first one. The most recent one I found.
Just while we're going to be in there, I just have a question that I may need to clarify for both sides. Is it accurate? I heard you testify that you no longer have access to your maintenance requests for the December, January, February timeframe?
Yes, I can absolutely actively log on to the online website and show you all the loops I have to go through just to get to the maintenance request. And all I can see is from the last one, May 14th, or, that week.
But did you also say that you had access to the maintenance requests from last fall?
I'm supposed to have access to them, but they keep deleting them from
They're
me
deleting
having
it, yeah.
access. So that's why it took me so long to get the evidence
Okay.
for you guys, because it was a whole month.
Okay, so what I'm trying to find out, is there a gap in time, like a period between certain months that you can't access?
Yeah.
Or is it a situation you just can't access anything before May?
I can't access anything before me. I don't know what's been put in. Like I can't access anything at all.
We will look into that. They certainly have not been deleted. I looked in the system today, they're still there. So I'm not sure why she can't see them. I will talk to somebody first thing tomorrow morning about that.
Yeah, we.
They're aware of it too.
Yeah,
because
we
I've
had
brought it
to
to them multiple
we had to go to the office, and it took them quite a while. She had to even go in there and
Multiple times.
raise her voice basically to get our copies of it because they didn't want to release any copies.
Okay.
Until she actually went in there.
Yeah, I've not been made aware of this until right now. I just handed you a copy. You're welcome to keep it, and I will talk to somebody first thing tomorrow morning. When I went earlier today to double check, there was no delay, so I don't know what's going on, but I will.
Melissa, I'm sure you're familiar with her.
Yeah.
She's very aware of me not being able to access it.
Okay.
Supposedly she fixed it, but then when I seen today, before I came here, I can't see anything before me.
So
Okay.
with the records that you were able to furnish, did it show who canceled or completed the order?
Unfortunately, it does not. I believe there were only 2 or 3 canceled orders, one from November 18th and another possibly there was one from November 27th and another one possibly from March. But unfortunately, the system does not show who completes or cancels the orders.
Yeah, so
correction on that. It does show if they do a note, but I'm pretty sure purposely they did not do a note. I'm not sure if I can even cancel it on my end. I'm more than happy to log in, try to put a request and see if I'm able to cancel it, but I don't even think I have access to that.
So it's one of those things where it's fairly material to know who's actually canceling or completing a work order.
Of course.
Were you able to email that to staff?
The other problem, unfortunately, is that the maintenance people that were there for the majority of this are no longer there. So they are no longer our employees. I can't bring them here to testify about anything, unfortunately.
It's understandable, just from a record-keeping system.
Absolutely.
A lot of
There
them
is-
are still there that I've
There's
seen.
Kevin, he's still there.
And he's aware of the issues. He's the one that told me that my daughter's room had to have a hole in order for my sink issue to be fixed.
That's, I'm sorry, what's his name?
Kevin
Kevin?
Santiago, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And also, we did notice that Roy was living on the property there. I noticed that as well because I was coming back from work one day and I got into a confrontation with him. He actually pulled up to the side of my car and basically threatened me outside of my car where the cops had to get involved. They came down to our door, knocking to ask us what happened. I let them know that he was being real rude. That same day, earlier in the day, he slammed the door in her face. We had it on camera footage as well, 'cause, like we have the camera. Slammed the door in her face and told her to stop texting him about the maintenance complaints and.
Yeah, because since I was calling out of work for this, I told him at some point, hey, listen, like I don't know what's gonna happen. I know you guys close at 5, but I get off at work at 5. I can't keep calling out. I'm gonna lose my job. So he stated that he does not work. They don't pay him overtime. He doesn't work after 5, and just really rude. He hung up on my face. The next day, I went to Melissa. I showed her the video. I'm sure if I go back, I can find that video for you of how rude he was being on the phone and when he hung up. I can show you the video when the cops came knocking on our door at 11 o'clock at night while my daughter was sleeping. Asking us what was going on. The cops even apologized. They left to see that there was no problem. So it's been consistent issues, not even with the apartment itself, but with the personnel.
So it is concierge's turn to ask questions, so I just want
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
so
I just
sorry.
want to return back to them.
It's okay. I only have, I believe, one more question, and that's the email you just showed. Just to confirm, it does say to leave a small stream of water running, correct?
Right.
Okay. And it doesn't tell you to leave your apartment at a specific temperature, right?
No, not that one, but if you want, I can definitely keep looking.
If there's another one that tells you to leave it at a specific temperature, I'd be interested to see that.
They never specified temperature though. They
was
only
more Roy than
advised
Roy.
us to keep it on to avoid that because Roy's explanation of it was if I turn off my heater, it's working harder to heat the house after it's cold.
Right. And I'm sorry, did Roy tell you to keep your apartment at 80 degrees?
He didn't specify a temperature.
Okay.
So
That's just
when you
what heated my
He
apartment.
told us not to shut it off, like
At
to
all.
keep it running, because if not, the heat will fight. It will basically be trying to fight harder the cold. When the apartment gets real cold, the heater is working harder to cover the cold.
And at that point in time, I never got the police report, but that was when the police officer was in the house, and that was the same exact day that he had offered that second unit that was not working.
And I just have one final question here. The difference between the two electrical bills, I believe, was approximately $775. Does that sound right, between the 2801 and the 3577 that we showed earlier?
Like the one from February and then March?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Sorry, say your question again?
So it appears, and I just want to confirm that the difference between the two is approximately $775, $800 if you round up.
I could just, it might be a little easier. It says, I'm looking at it now, you have total balance forward was 2801.95. Total current charges for that month that you're talking about indicate 808.91 plus additional miscellaneous charges and credits of 3289 for a total balance of 3577.97.
So new charge of about $810,
Give or take, yeah.
give or take. And just again, clarifying, your apartment was at 75 to 80 degrees that month.
Correct.
Okay.
Was it set at the thermostat for 75 to 80 degrees?
It was-
Or-
it was,
Or was it at that temperature?
I apologize. Yeah, was the thermostat set at 75 to 80 degrees for that month?
It was like, it's not an electrical one, it's the one that you manually do.
There's
Because there's
three.
3 of them. There's one in our room, a living room, and my daughter's room. They were all set, the 2 rooms were at 75 and the living room was an 80.
Okay, so that's what the dial said, but what was the actual temperature in the house?
Oh, we wouldn't know.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Okay.
No further questions for me.
Temperature in the house was cold, I guess.
Yeah. Now, and just to clarify, going down the road, I just wanted to point out, I had also had an opportunity to look at that area of the previous bill that was 2801.95. The balance forward was $1,982.45. So the current monthly charges, to be a little bit more accurate, for the month of January 2024 were $852, and I think, if I read correctly, 39 cents. So it wasn't the $1,400. I know you'd said that there was this had started
With
probably in
December, then.
December too, but we don't have those bills. But at least December, there would have been a portion of that bill carrying forward to $1,982.45. We just don't know what that is, but still an $800 monthly bill. It's pretty high for an apartment. Okay. Anybody else have any questions of the witness? Do you have anything else to add?
Oh, no, that's it.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Okay.
Okay.
These are easy.
Ryan Hoyler from Robinson Cole for Concierge Century Hills again. To start our case, I'd like to remind the commission of the letter we sent both in April as well as the letter we sent in May. One of the primary understandings in both administrative law as well as litigation is that one is limited to the allegations in their complaint. In this case, the complaint only alleges that there were days where there was missing hot water. That's the only allegation in the complaint. This is standard. We cite cases in our May letter that apply this standard to administrative law, just the same as any other litigation before a superior court. In any commission hearing, the allegations are limited to the allegations in the complaint. So again, the only thing before this commission tonight is the allegations of lack of hot water.
Can you just give us a moment? We decided, I just
course.
want to pull up the May letter that you're referring to.
I have a copy of it if you don't mind. I believe I have multiple copies for the commission.
Yes, that'd be great.
Yep, I have it right here.
Okay. Legal citations, I believe, are on a footnote at the bottom of page 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If the complainant would like a copy, I have an extra copy as well.
There, you got this one.
Would the commission like some time to, should I go forward or?
Yeah, I just wanted to reread it
That's,
because
yeah.
something if I could just, well, I'll wait. Just if you can give us a moment.
Absolutely.
Okay, I've seen this.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, to reiterate my questioning, a statement from my questioning of the witness earlier, there are a total of 5 days from August 31st until the end of January where there was a claim that there was no hot water available. While I do regret that there is no information in our maintenance charts as to who completed those claims, all except for the January 18th claim were noted as being completed within 24 hours. The January 18th claim was included in the discussion with the Health Commission, I believe was included in our April letter. I'm not sure that I have extra copies of that with me tonight, but I also believe it was part of the packet. It makes clear that there was the Health Commission came on, the Health Department was actively involved in that. It makes it clear that there was a broken water pump from one of the boilers that was making no hot water available to the entirety of Unit B, or to Building B. It took 5 days to find the part and be able to replace the part, as is clear in the Health Department communications. It was cleared up as soon as possible. Nonetheless, there were 5 to 6 days there where that building was without hot water due to a broken water pump. We were able to fix it. And to clarify, it appears that the claimant has some sort of complaint or allegation to make against Eversource here. There's no electricity that goes into heating Building B or any of the buildings at Century Hills. There's been testimony in front of this commission before from maintenance personnel that, unfortunately, Roy is no longer with us. He was the one who understood all this stuff.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
He's okay.
He's okay. No, I didn't mean that. I meant he's no longer with us as an employee, yes. Apologies.
Okay.
He's no longer with us as an employee, but he has testified previously that there is no electrical that goes into the heating of hot water at this building. It's all gas. It is done en masse, and it is billed to the individual units as part of their water bills. So therefore, it's impossible for hot water to be the cause of the electrical bills in this unit. It's simply not possible. It appears that the cause is a combination of very high electrical rates. My understanding of the average Eversource electrical rate in Connecticut in December was over 12 cents per kilowatt hour, and the keeping of the apartment at 75 to 80 degrees throughout the winter. As the commission previously said, it seems unlikely that the outer door to the patio could be the cause of this. It appears that the sole cause is keeping the apartment at 80 degrees at 12 cents per kilowatt hour for months on end during the winter. Nonetheless, it cannot be hot water that is the cause of the electrical here. And again, the complaint before this commission is limited to the availability of hot water. That is the only thing that is raised in the complaint. If the claimant would like to bring another complaint on other issues, she's more than welcome to.
Can I clarify, though? It's basically water problems, not just hot water.
She does mention water problems.
So
if
the complaint
if the commission would,
is limited to water problems.
the only specific allegations she makes in the complaint are unavailability of hot water.
Well, and problems with the regulation of temperature.
In the ability to get hot water. If you
Which
look
is
at,
what, I'm just saying to make sure.
sure, in that context, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
But nonetheless, the commission is limited by the complaint. There is absolutely no way that her electrical bill has risen to what it is because of hot water. It's simply that the water doesn't, it's not heated by electricity.
Dad, point well taken. I understand that. The question I had is, though, I believe there was some testimony from the claimant that she was advised to keep the heat on because of the issue with freezing of pipes, because there was no hot water. Now, I understand through your cross-examination, they didn't specify a temperature.
That's correct.
While, say, 80 degrees might be
Excessive.
for some, it could be.
Could be
for
normal
others,
for
not.
others.
But 75-ish, I wouldn't necessarily say during the winter months would be. And if they're being advised by members of concierge to do that, to keep the heat on, I do understand, and they conceded that they didn't specify a certain temperature, but that I think would be attributable, at least reasonably related to the water issues. Would you agree?
I would agree that there is a relation between water issues there. It doesn't seem to be the water issues that are in the complaint. The issue that is at issue there is in the cold months, if water is not running or it is not kept above freezing temperatures, it is possible that pipes will burst. I also live in an apartment. I regularly get emails in the wintertime telling me to keep a slow trickle of water or my apartment warm in order to prevent pipes from freezing. That's understood. There was no temperature provided in the email. The claimant chose to keep it between 75 and 80. For instance, when I go away for a week in the winter, I turn my heat down to 60 because I know it's still heated. It's still going to prevent the pipes from freezing, but I don't need my apartment to be at 80 degrees. I think it's what we're talking about here is the availability or lack of availability of water regulation, temperature regulation in water. This is an issue related to, that we're talking about now, that's related to potential pipes bursting during the wintertime. The email that was sent from Concierge is a standard email that any landlord would send their tenants during winter months.
Which I can agree to.
Yeah, to prevent pipes from freezing. Again, with respect to the complaints before the commission, there are a total, again, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days where complaints were made about lack of hot water or hot water issues.
Would you agree, though those complaints are what you've documented through the portal, but this witness also, and both witnesses actually testified they made complaints via text and verbally to representatives of Concierge. Do you have anything in response to that?
Their lease is very clear, as in all the leases that have been before this commission, that all requests for maintenance are required to go through the portal. Further, the claimant's own testimony indicated that at some point, due to issues with some of the maintenance staff, they told her to stop texting complaints in. But nonetheless, I would point to the lease that is before this commission as part of the packet that requires all maintenance requests to go through the portal.
Because if they have intermittent, I mean, I think there's been testimony that they have intermittent hot water issues or water issues in general. And if they've already put in a complaint in there and they're being advised by, as they testified, so I'm not just pulling this out of thin air, they've testified that they're having communications with staff or the director at Concierge that they're working on it. Would it be reasonable that they would not continue to make additional complaints and file requests if they're being told that they're working on it and they think that it's being addressed?
I think that if the portal shows, and as far as we know, they only recently have not had access to the portal, that if you made a complaint on November 27th, and days later it was listed as completed, and 3 weeks later, at some point in December, you don't have hot water, I would think it would be normal to submit another complaint again, and to not rely on the closed 3-week-old complaint. So again, Concierge has information for 5 days of lack of hot water. Now, if you add in the extra days from January, it comes out to between 10 and 11 days with a lack of hot water. She was compensated $250. That's about $25 a day. If you do the math on her lease at $1,779 per month, it comes out to approximately $60 per day in a 30-day month. She was compensated 40% of her total lease for all of the days in the maintenance system where we were made aware that she was without hot water.
Yeah, there was I know you presented, I think it's Exhibit A to your initial packet from April. There was a listing of charges, which took it up all the way to March 1st, and obviously we're now in June, so there's when you submitted this initially, we thought the hearing was going to take place back then, but the tenant indicated that she rejected the $250 offer. Do you know anything about that?
We asked staff about that. We asked them to search through their emails or any other communications about this offer. They were unable to find anything about a rejection of this money. As far as we know, it was accepted. If she'd like to reject it, I'm sure there's a way that we can come to some sort of arrangement now.
And if she's paying, as she testified, and there's no other indication not that she's not paying her monthly charges on time, she should still be carrying a $250 credit, correct?
Theoretically, I will have to double check on the current. I believe I have a copy of the current ledger. I don't know that I have a paper copy for everyone. I did confirm this morning that she is and has been current on her rent for every month she's been there. Let me see if I have a copy of it somewhere in here.
So while you're looking, one thing I do have a question on, and it's not not limited to just this particular case, but in several cases, we've been told that people have been directed to call or text particular people on the staff, and therefore not really going through the process of logging their tickets in the portal and being directed so from concierge employees. So there appears to be a process disjoint where you're holding them accountable to a lease that they should be upholding, and the people who should be upholding the lease are guiding them elsewhere.
I do believe there has been maybe one other claimant before this commission that has said that.
I've only been here for a year, so I know at least one claimant that we went through last time basically had the same complaint.
Again, their lease states that they need to make complaints through the portal. If they would like to text the maintenance people and make a complaint through the portal, that's perfectly acceptable. I have not seen any written documentation anywhere from anyone at Century Hills or any claimant in writing telling anyone to do anything other than go through the portal. We have testimony from this claimant, and I can tell you that the process is to go through the portal. And that's where we are on this.
Okay. The other thing is, does your portal send out texts and receive texts or not?
I believe it sends out emails and automated emails whenever there is a maintenance request submitted and I believe completed.
Can they also receive emails?
In what sense? I don't understand.
So basically, one thing, not 100% relevant, but I do know a lot about landlording because I am a landlord, okay, is that for most property management systems, they have the capability for portals to then be able to send texts or communications and receive them. And so therefore, this is the reasons why I'm really interested into the chain of custody, because if the work orders are marked as completed, we don't have evidence furnished as to what the completion or resolution code was, or who did it, or who canceled it. And so
That's
therefore,
correct.
those are all things that are pretty relevant to, hey, was the work order addressed in a timely fashion?
Agreed, and I agree that's a gap in the record system we have. I do not know if the system itself can receive emails. I don't believe that from talking to anyone there, and I can testify as to my own experience at my fairly nice apartment complex. I have to go through a portal. I can't send in an email.
Hey,
So-
I hold people the same account, but I'm just saying, if guided outside the system.
I think part of the problem, and this is something we're going to have to address, is that who has been completing the maintenance request has not been logged. And I don't know that the system has a separate a section for that, so it's something that obviously is a gap here.
Do you have anybody from concierge here to testify or present on any of these?
I do not, unfortunately. The one person, I didn't know his name, I guess it's Kevin, that has been around is unavailable this evening and has been unavailable for most evenings that we've tried to pull
Yeah,
this
I
out.
mean, it is helpful to do this. I mean, I understand you're doing your best with regard to the argument, but, we
Right.
use the term testifying, but it's not
I'm not really
realistically,
testifying
you're not
because-
testifying,
yes.
but it would be helpful if concierge had somebody here to testify that could speak to these
Understood.
issues.
Understood. I would like to point the commission to Roy's prior testimony I know that some of the commission members are new, but we did have Roy here in prior hearings who was able to testify as to how the building was set up, the way the water heaters work, things like that.
I know from the history and the reading of the last couple of cases that the water heater is a centralized water heater that is gas-fired, that the gas boiler itself had an issue, and you had time periods where it's down. So I think
Correct. And
that's a given fact.
And that's my understanding of what happened in January, and the documentation that we've provided from the health department does back that up.
Yeah, since we're going on these, I'm going over your the letter, the sample letter that you provided, there's an exhibit at the back that delineates those portal
That's correct.
entries. And so we've heard discussion from the tenant that, hey, you know, and from her fiance, that there's, you know, lots of different days when the water will act up and it could come and go. But generally speaking, they have thought that they've had portal entries, not always aware of when they're closed or still open. So I'm not as concerned about how many entries are in here, but the fact that the water problems are like either you can't control it, it's scalding hot, or you can't get hot water. And I see that these entries are all logged, you know, completed. You've given us one explanation of the hot water pump that you can tie to 5 days, one hot water pump. All these were completed on different dates, all these portals for our tenant. You didn't change a water heater each time you logged in completed, or a water pump, right? What was completed?
Again, with the maintenance records, I cannot tell you. The maintenance records were submitted in the prior month in April. They were one of the exhibits to the April letter, and they go through all of the complaints, not just the water-related ones, but all of the complaints filed.
So one thing in the future I would like to see is kind of the registration of what work was completed.
Yes.
And who logged it. The other thing is, I find it really interesting, especially considering what we've reviewed, that the hot water issue would not be limited to this one tenant if it was happening at that point in time. Do we have any other complaints that were registered at that point in time?
I'm not aware of any. I do know that during the January 18th, which is the one that the health department was involved in, there were other complaints to the building maintenance people about lack of hot water. I don't know about the other dates.
So I'm with all these completed, and I know only the definition of one completion of the water pump, it leads me to believe that these other completions have something to do with other reasons for not having hot water. Either it was diverted to another unit, since it's in a central system, or the holding tank was completely depleted, maybe it was leaking. There's a lot of, and I don't understand how you can get scalding hot water out of a cold water faucet side.
Neither do I.
So,
Unless your mixer is totally messed.
so it just seems like there's been, not just these dates, but it seems like there's a lot of, discomfort to a tenant over how their water is delivered.
I would agree, and I believe that's why we're here. However, I would reiterate that, again, the only written evidence before this, paper evidence before this commission, is that there were 5 days of water complaints alleged. And I can tell you that the one on January 18th was because of a broken water pump. The one in early January, the ones in November, and the one in August, I cannot tell you exactly what the problems were there. But again, I would note that there are significant gaps between a lot of these, including 3-month gaps and 1.5-month gaps. And the allegations that there were lack of hot water within those gaps is something that's there's no evidence of that. And the only evidence in the portal that the maintenance team, that we know that the maintenance team was aware
I mean,
of.
the evidence is the tenant testimony here and now.
Absolutely.
And their witness.
And absolutely, that is testimony before the commission. But the only written evidence, the only paper evidence that there's any kind of other complaints were these complaints about hot water.
So I apologize. I think we dove into our questions before you were
Sorry.
completed.
Yeah.
So did you have anything else you wanted to say before we begin our questions?
No. Again, I would reiterate that the complaint is limited to, or the issues before this commission are limited to what's in the complaint. That the only written evidence, the only paper evidence before this commission is these hot water complaints, that we have the paper testimony from the January 18th complaint explaining exactly what happened, and that the claimant has already been provided the $250. If she'd like to reject that, I'm sure there's something, we can come to an arrangement with.
Any questions? Okay. I do have a follow-up, but maybe we could just reconcile this now. I mean, it's a little bit over. Do you have any questions of the concierge's attorney, or do you have anything in response to that? Because I do have a question from. Okay. Just, if you can come up to the microphone.
Should I?
Yeah, good. And the reason I'm going to ask is I also need to clear this up. Because what we have here is your indication that you rejected the 250. We've been provided with documentation that was printed, a couple of months ago. Are you able to look on the portal now to see if that credit was rejected, or how did you reject it, if you rejected it at all?
Absolutely. So I seen the credit on my portal, and I called Melissa, and she said that was from concierge. I told her that's not enough. I'm not happy with that, and I declined it. She said, well, it's already in the portal, basically to take it up here. That's what
Okay,
she told me.
so to put a finer point on when you say you rejected it means in terms of you don't believe it's adequate to address your issues.
Yes.
But it's still, would you agree with me, but it's still showing up as a credit on the portal?
Yeah, it still
Okay.
showed up. It went
Because
into
we have
effect.
different interpretations of what rejecting. Rejecting means it got sent back, it's not there on a credit anymore.
No, it didn't get
Your
lost.
position is that that's not enough, but the 250 still remains there. You don't dispute that.
Right, no,
Okay.
exactly correct.
Okay. Did you hear that, Attorney?
So
Yeah, and I'm trying to take a look at that, and I'm sorry, I don't fully understand this ledger that I have, but it does show that the $250 credit's still there.
Okay.
That's,
So that's what, that I think cleared it up. So it's hanging out there still.
just to
Oh,
clarify.
on my end, it showed that it was deducted because it was placed during the first week of February.
They
So it showed
deducted
that it deducted it from the rent, and I paid the remaining balance because she was refusing to
So
remove
is-
it from my ledger.
It's not something we can move to the side and still pay.
Okay,
the
okay,
rent.
so in other words, so say the rent, well, let's just be even with it. It was what, 1779?
Yeah.
That month following that they gave you the 250 credit, the following month they gave you something less than 1779 for your charges,
Yeah,
and you only paid.
That.
It's
That's
auto pay, so it automatically.
Okay, you got the ACH transfer. Okay, all right. So you paid something less that which you've realized, for lack of better words, you've realized the $250 credit, but you no way, shape, or form accept that as satisfaction.
Correct, yes,
Or
because
your
I
complaint.
verbally told her this, but
Okay,
there's no
we just
way
now
I'm-
know where it is. That's where we wanted to know where it is. Okay.
So
Do you have any?
there is one thing that I did want to clarify with the attorney. You had said, hey, look, as a percentage of what was offered, the percentage being 250 is more like 14% of the total charges for the month. Basically, if you did 250, 1779.
I was talking per day.
Okay.
If you look at the 250 and you add up, I believe it's 11 days worth of total time that we are aware of not having hot water, it comes out to approximately 40% of her rent per day. I think if it was the original letter, we had 6 days, and I think we did the math at 60%. So, because I believe if you divide 1779 by 30, you get a little under $60.
So you're saying you did a per diem day, and of that, so for example, say we had 30 days in a month, and you're dividing that into 1779, you got a $59 a day.
Yes.
And what you're suggesting is that you would pay the 250
Right.
would represent whatever the per diem thing would be, 40% of the $59.30.
For each of those, so our argument is that for each of those days that we were aware that she was without hot water, she was returned 40%. I believe it's a little bit less than
daily.
40% per day of her rent.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so if you do 250 divided by 30, it's $8.33 all the way to infinity. And you go, it's $59 is the daily rate for the
Right.
department.
Correct.
So if you go, hey, look, your reimbursement of it was $8 per day.
No, again, I believe there were either 10 or 11 days, and
He's
it
doing the
was,
250 into the 11 days.
It's 11, okay.
yeah.
So I guess you would do divide 11 into 250, and then,
22.5, give or take.
so 22.5 of the 59.3, that's where he's getting the 40%, I think.
Give or take. I think that's actually more like 37% or something like that.
Okay.
But
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, just one thing, he's asking, for Roy's previous testimony or whatnot to be used here. He's no longer credible, he's no longer with the company.
Yeah, so with that, and I think I can maybe clarify to give you some comfort with that, is we've had some other claims, and I understand you're like, you don't want necessarily, he's not here for you to cross-examine. Let me ask it maybe a different way. That you have no, what essentially he's saying is that the water heater that provides hot water to the rest of the building or the units and whatnot, that is powered by gas.
That's not my understanding. My
Okay.
understanding is that it's electric, so is there proof that it's gas, and where is the bill going to? Because I'm not paying for gas, I'm paying for electric. And according to Eversource, when I called in, my heating source and my unit, it's electric.
Yeah, I think what, maybe this will help out before I get this, digging this hole any deeper. That because of the fact that the gas is powering the water heater, which provides hot water, irrespective of whether it's coming in consistently or not, the fact that that water heater is gas and not electric, and Eversource is an electric bill, that the fact that you're running the water to waiting to get hot water from your sink or wherever it is in your apartment, that wouldn't drive up your electric bill because electric doesn't heat the water heater.
And if it would help the commission, if this is the first time at this hearing that we've heard about this specific issue, if the commission would continue the hearing, we would absolutely be able to provide documentation as to the source of the hot water and how it's an electrical heater, or a gas heater, sorry.
We don't have that type of time
Yeah,
to like
like-
continuing, you know.
So
Well, I understand. So you do understand what he's trying to say is that essentially the fact that you're running, for example, running the sink to keep it from pipes freezing. If the source of the hot water was an electric water heater, then that would account for your electric bill being so high. But it's a gas-powered water heater, mass gas-powered water heater that heats multiple units, and that source is gas and not electric. Therefore, it wouldn't be reflected on an increased bill. It's more likely be due to the temperature being kept up in your apartment. Would you agree?
Okay, but when we brought this up with the concierge and the maintenance, this was never brought up to us about it being gas or, you know, whatever.
Right, they would just
Our
tell us
job
the
there
same
is
thing.
not to figure out what it is. We're just trying to figure out where is this usage.
Yeah, I'm not disputing. I think what you're just saying is that if you're not being charged for necessarily for the hot water, it's implicit, I think, in the other charges in your rent. It's just saying that when you show an Eversource bill, that's for an electric.
Yep.
And an electric would be for your powering your appliances or the heat or the air conditioning in your unit. It would not necessarily power or be attributable to hot water.
I understand what you're saying and what he's saying, but it's been told to us over and over and over again that our heat is electric, and that's why up until now,
Heat,
it's the first
heat,
time.
like living space heat, not hot water.
yeah, and just
Maybe you can.
so right now, I just reviewed the lease just to make sure where it specifies as to what's paid for by the tenant and what is not. And so it basically says that none of anything is basically paid for by the concierge. The costs are actually all put on you. And so you do pay for the hot water. The hot water is actually built into the gas charge on the water bill.
That's correct.
So
It just wouldn't show up on the Eversource bill.
wouldn't show up on the Eversource bill. But you are paying for it from a charge that they are giving to you.
That is correct.
And where's that charge?
It's part of your water bill, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's why your water bill doesn't go up and down the same as your electric bill. Because the electric bill is doing something different, the water bill is doing something different.
Okay, so another thing that he said was that on the summary of why we're here was only for the hot water. On on here, it shows Verosha's work orders for Verosha's of reasons, so various of reasons of why we're here. So it's not just, it's not just the water, it's the heat that, we're just trying to figure out what's the source of our bill being so high. It's not because the lights are on and, they're making a bill. We never had a bill this high for Eversource, ever. Wherever we lived at, it's never been this high. And I'm going to say that because I pay out of my pocket for this. Not her, me. So I have to work 2 jobs just to pay for these bills. And when that bill was that high, it was enough because we knew that something was going on there. And that's why I told her to call Eversource, figure something out. And this is why we're here today, because a bill is not going to be that high. I've never heard of an Eversource bill being that high. We've had a whole house before, and it was never that high for
See, this is
Eversource.
where I'm confused because in April 30th, this upcoming April, I got an email from Concierge about the water heater. In that email, there's nothing mentioned about my heating source for the water heater. All it states is currently, as you all may know, your UBI water bill is currently being billed by a system that is called RUBS, which takes the building you are in as a whole and divides it amongst everyone. Starting today, all units will be inspected to be adjusted to having its own individual meter. All units will be billed based off of your own water usage and will no longer be with the RUB system of billing. Inspectors will be coming by units around noontime on 5/1/24 to conduct inspection. If you have any questions, please contact the leasing office at 860. The number, thank you for your participation. Best regards, leasing office.
So I guess what it's saying is, if there seems to be a disagreement as to the source of the element that's heating the hot water, like the fuel source.
Only
Okay.
because I've made it an issue so many times, and so many times it's just told to me, oh, it's your electric bill. It's like it's been repeated
Yeah.
the same thing over and over and over.
I got it,
again.
and I understand it's your contention that, correct me if I'm wrong, that your hot water is being fueled by electricity, correct?
Absolutely. Now
Okay.
I want to know, okay,
And-
if this is the gas bill, what am I paying for? Then what am I using?
And then
for water?
his
Like,
contention is that it's being paid by, it's being heated by a gas source, natural gas. I don't think you're going to agree on either one of it. Both of you presented, you've presented testimony and your own evidence. Council's presented some documentary evidence as well as argument. We'll take that into due consideration. And we're not going to resolve it necessarily today. That's fine.
I would like to ask that if the commission does consider this an open issue as to how the water is being heated, I would like to ask for a continuance so that we can provide written evidence as to how the water is being heated. Again, this is the first time this specific issue was brought to our attention was this hearing tonight. We knew that the electrical bills and a lot of other things were included in the packet. We weren't aware that it was a contention over how the water was being heated. So if the commission does consider this to be an open issue, I request that this be continued so that we can provide evidence as to that effect.
Understood. Understood.
I have a question. I know you had said that you keep the thermostat 75 to 80. Now, was that even at nighttime when people are sleeping?
Yeah, because we were told that if we turned it off, or if Roy told me that if I turned it off, or if I put anything lower than what I had it at, because he didn't give me a temperature. He was at the house. He physically seen it, all 3 of them with the cops. So he just told me to keep it at what it was, because if not, the house was going to continue to feel cool. So, yes.
Okay, so like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it was kept at? Because I believe electric heat is instant, and they recommend, like in the evening, that you turn it down,
So
or when you're not there, when
So-
you're at work.
So just to clarify, I wanted to make sure on the thermostats, there was no thermostat, there was a dial on the heater, so you couldn't program it to adjust back and forth?
Correct.
That's
Based on,
just for the central AC.
yep. So really, the heaters was an electric baseboard from the sound of it? So,
I do believe that's the case. I can't testify to it, but it's my understanding that that's the case, that it's electric baseboard heat.
I know.
Yes.
which without a,
Also, I feel like it's unfair to ask for a continuance because you were aware of what the issues were today, specifically with the heating of the water. So that should have been something that you came prepared for.
Again, there was nothing in the complaint about that, nor was there anything in the packet about it.
I
We-
think,
Heating itself wasn't questioned.
yeah, I think we can agree that you both disagree. We've heard from both sides. I don't think that it'll be necessary, particularly if you're saying that you don't want a continuance. We can deliberate it if that's necessary. That may be something subject to a motion, but I don't think it's necessary, especially if they're considering. it not
If they
be
don't
an
agree
open
to a
issue.
continuance,
Okay.
then, yeah.
All right. So with that being said, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna, at this point, I'm gonna ask you to sit down, both you people sit down. We're going to close the public hearing, the evidentiary portion of this hearing, and we're gonna turn to deliberation as I described that process before. I would want to remind the commissioners here is, we've heard a lot of evidence here today, and argument with regard to the claims, the scope of it. We know that the breaking of the lease is not an issue for us to be deciding. As with other past deliberations, I also want to remind you, to the extent that you think that you're going to find a finding in favor of a claimant, for example, and you want to make a determination of what would be, I guess it's not reimbursement. I know there's different measures people have in their mind with looking at rent, costs of rent, or days without. It's not necessarily to reimburse anybody. So you can use it sort of as a measure in your mind. It's not here to our call to reimburse somebody for a bill or rent, if you will. It's more of the measurement of damages if we find the conditions to which the person lived is harsh and unconscionable. And so I'm not saying I'm prejudging anything that we're going in that direction. I just want to remind it because we keep talking about numbers and bills. That being said, I guess the first issue to deliberate is whether we find in favor of the claimant. If we can deliberate on that, entertain a motion, and at that point is if there's a finding in favor of the claimant, then we go to the next question is what should the if there's in favor of the claimant on the claim, that the next step would be then to find out what would we feel an appropriate award to the claimant would be. If we reach a decision on the first motion that we don't find in favor of the claimant, then our inquiry ends there. Okay? Understood? Okay, with that, I will turn it over to you folks, and we can deliberate openly about the merits.
So,
the
just to keep it in the straight and narrow as to what we heard, we definitely heard that there was some water-based issues where the heat and the temperature of the water has been intermittent at best or not functional during the course of this issue. We do know for a fact that during the course of this issue, there was a water pump that broke that at least contributed to this issue. So from that perspective, I do think there is something to their claim. Would everybody agree?
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, I think the fact that there was a $250 credit acknowledges the problem.
That there's at least some taciturn acknowledgement that there was a water issue that did occur. So to that extent, I would make a motion that we do find in favor of the claimant that there was water issues that basically represented a loss of use of her apartment that made it so that the rent that was charged is harsh and unconscionable. But I just wanted to make a motion that we're all in favor of that portion of it, and then we'll talk about the charge second.
Okay, any discussion? Anything else? Okay, all right. On that, the motion is as stated. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none? Ayes have it. It's unanimous. Okay.
So one thing that unfortunately I'm probably going to have to say at the beginning is that, the bills that we saw in the Eversource exhibit don't directly tie to the water claim as stated, but there is definitely a water claim, and the water claim, from what I'm adding up in my math, as to the testimony, is we had 7 to 10 days in December, 5 days in January, 10 days in February, nothing in March. We did have 4 days also in the month of May, and then there are complaints that date back from August and November as well. At least this is what we have in the testimony, and both written and verbal. Would everybody agree with those numbers?
I believe she says there's still ongoing issues now.
Yeah, she said, I think that's why I was trying to go through that, is
Yeah.
just you skipped over March, which you did say there was no complaints, April, no complaints, and May represented 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely accurate, as well as something ongoing in June, which we didn't attribute to any number of days yet.
So basically, if we take a look at this from just a total number of days, with May being at 4, February being at 10, that's 14, January being at 5, we're up to 19, December being 7, which we're up to, 7 to 10, that's at least 26, plus ongoing concerns, plus several days that we have
In the opening months.
in the opening months. So realistically, if we take a total of the days that use of hot water has been impaired, or temperature control on the water, which is, especially for sanitation in this time period, something that is definitely key for people to have, that's amounts to about 30 days, or about a month. Would everyone agree with that math?
Agree with that, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I did
So-
work out the math as far as what the per diem day was by taking the monthly rate of 1779, multiplying that by 12, and then dividing that by 365 to figure out down to the day what the per diem amount is, and that is $58.49.
So I think that realistically, the question that we have in front of us is, from that perspective, charging full rent when there's a loss of hot water or usage during that time period, what does that represent as harsh and unconscionable relative to the charge that was made, because the tenant did pay rent in full and on time, and what we think is appropriate at this point. So from that perspective, the offer that was made from
Concierge?
from Concierge, I just want to do the math out, because they basically said that they were looking at doing a $250 for I believe they had 11-day period
Yes.
that they were calculating out. So they offered $22.73 as their proposed daily per diem rate of $58.43, was it?
$58.49.
49, okay. So as we look at those two numbers, the question is, realistically, do we spread that across the month and say instead of 11 days, or does that not represent an accurate figure?
Just so I can clarify, it was Concierge's contention that there's only approximately 11 days with water issues, however you want to, or at least hot water issues. And if we're going forward with it's finding that 30 days is more accurate, I don't know, for making that determination, then it would seem to be that the average of 22, well, I guess you're trying to extrapolate that over into 30 days?
Correct, that's what I'm looking to do.
Okay.
So basically saying, if they're saying that a loss of hot water represents $22.73 approximately per day, and we're talking about 30 days, that the amount is $681.90.
Something you also mentioned earlier is, I don't disagree that it just does, with regard to the source of the fuel source for the hot water. I don't find that to be electricity. But be that as it may, I don't necessarily disregard the heat component of it, particularly. Now I understand, turning it up to 80 degrees or might be excessive for some, but I mean, if they're being told because of hot water issues or the pipe being frozen to keep the heat running constantly, which is reasonable, I can't say that it's not completely unrelated to this.
Yeah,
I just don't know how to quantify that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's
If at all.
completely unrelated, but I also don't know it's 100% material at the same time period. The one thing that I do know is, as 100% material, is that, especially with a child and having a water mixer that will work at the right temperature, and the fact they brought up other water issues, including some sanitation ones relative to a toilet that's exploding water. Realistically, while we're looking at water as a concern in the unit, it's one of those things where it's not just the days registered relative to this particular complaint of not having hot water. It's also having water at the right temperature that you can use it safely for what you're trying to do, regardless of the time period, because people exist in a 24-hour time.
Well, I think too that the number, like I've never rented where I had this many closely related, the water,
Issues after issue after issue,
after
yeah.
issue, there's an issue there.
Right.
And so that I think portends to a bigger issue than just the number of days here. I mean, it's they're obviously fixing something.
Yep.
It says completed, so they find something, they're
Well,
fixing it.
There's
So
a
it's,
lot.
so it's unreliable, right?
There's a
And
lot
it's
of
and
same-day
it's a necessity.
completion and canceled.
It's a human basic element of necessity for a tenant. So it raises the level of concern or attention we should put on it.
Yeah, so the one thing that I found definitely also troubling is that from an evidentiary standpoint, there's a lot of same-day completed or canceled, even when the report was that there wasn't people who visited their apartment. And then also from the lease, I believe it also has the fact that for fixing issues, they can authorize people to proceed automatically to correct issues, yet they've been requiring the tenant to be on site during the actual fixes, which is also something that I don't find quite in line with their lease relative to this getting fixed.
Especially if it's a central water pump down in the basement somewhere.
They don't need
Required.
Yeah, they don't need to actually enter.
I mean, the only problem that I could physically think in my mind would be that they run the pipes together and, there's a clog or the pipes are commingled so that hot water's coming out, the cold water's.
Well,
That would require an on-site visit, but
Either
they're
that or-
saying that it's a water pump
Yeah,
down in the basement.
either that or the water mixer has gone bad, which shouldn't be intermittent. It should be, the water mixer goes bad, it's gone bad. And so, relative to that, I think that right now, I'm looking and trying to really calculate a number in my head and really the percentage of where the use is impaired, because, especially with a young child who definitely you have to maintain being cleanly with, and then also being able to clean up after work, especially when you're working in outdoor elements during the winter, which I definitely heard as part of this, is that, it is something you expect to work. And so from that perspective, it's the percentage of loss of use is what comes to my head. It's really what we think that is. The way that the percentage of loss of use that they basically had said was, more in line with about a 30% loss of use on a daily basis. The question is, if we extrapolate that out, then it's in the $600 line, or is it more like 50 to 60% of loss of use of the apartment? Because there are other functional components to the apartment that were working appropriately, and so therefore, justifying the charges for the lease is appropriate.
What role do you think the $250 credit that's already been realized play into your calculation?
It should automatically be taken off, like it's been realized, it's been granted. It's one of those things where it's even though it's not accepted as a appropriate restitution for the ongoing nature of the issue, it's something that should be subtracted just because it has been realized. So that's my take on it.
I would concur with that.
So realistically, to that point, there's a range, and it's one of those things where you're either really talking about like a $600 range minus like the 250. I don't think the apartment was unusable during the time period. I don't think that, charging was harsh and unconscionable relative to that perspective for the full month. But I do think that it was hard to really maintain sanitation in it, so I'm more in lines to thinking that it's at least probably about a 50% loss of use at that time period. So realistically, if we're talking about that as a calculation, realistically, we're talking about it's about $639 after basically it would be $889 minus the $250 that they've already acknowledged and given a credit for. So I've given my opinion. I'm looking for others.
Yeah, I would agree with the $800 figure. The round figures, 800, so they've already realized 250 of that.
Yep.
Yep.
What's your?
So you're saying that the 250 on top of, I had like 660.
Yeah.
660
Yep.
and the 250 on top of that.
So basically, the 250's already been credited to them. So
Yes.
if you take 779, basically divide that in half, you're about $900.
Okay.
Round math.
1779, you mean?
1779.
Yeah.
And then when you do 1779 times 0.5 minus 250, the figure I get is $639.50.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that trying to prorate this based on a percentage of not being able to use it is a fair way of looking at it, because that's only taking into account, hey, the hot water or cold water isn't working. And it's not something that we can say definitively it was only from this time to this time or from here to there. Throughout the whole year of their lease, they've had, up until today, still issues with water. So I would think a proration per day in total would be more fair along the lines of how to figure this out, considering that, to the point of there's been a ton of complaints that have been put in, there's been a ton of complaints that have been addressed same day, there's been a ton of complaints that have been canceled, there's still ongoing issues, and this isn't something that's, they've been given direction to, hey, don't go to the portal, text me, talk to me. They've been given direction as to, oh, you got to have your heat up, so the pipes don't freeze, which kind of, I think, contributes to the excessive electric bill. So when you kind of look at all that together, instead of just trying to focus this on one particular thing, I think the proration of $58.49 per day is a little bit more fair.
So you're thinking a little bit low.
Yes.
Okay. Which is totally fair.
That makes
So,
sense, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just trying to.
Get the conversation going.
Right. Exactly.
I think just to kind of keep it simple, so we're not trying to deal with percentages and fractions and all this other stuff.
So the question that I have for you is then, are you thinking that they've basically realized the loss of use of their apartment for a full month based on that proration?
Over the course of the time that they've been renting from August to now, yes.
Okay. So what is,
That makes sense.
okay? So Ed?
I'm struggling with the idea that they lost, they had the use of all the other systems and utilities of the apartment. So they were there. I would agree that it's not comfortable living, and it does, and I wouldn't justify the rent for a place that had this many problems with just the water system. So I wouldn't stay. They are coming up on their end of their lease, I guess. So I would just say, we're not talking about breaking the lease, but I would move on. Because otherwise you're saying 30 days times 58. 49?
Yeah,
So basically 1 month of rent,
So
Right.
that's going to be 1 month's rent.
1 month rent.
Yep. I don't think that's excessive, but you know, like I said, I do think they have use of the space, and they could get water. The water was never shut off. So you could work around, I mean, filling up pots and letting it cool, right? You know the water's gonna come out super hot. You fill up your tub, and in about 30 minutes, you could hop in and take a bath, you know?
Yeah, that's,
You ever
that's,
taken a shower?
Yeah.
A cold shower in
Wouldn't be taking
December?
a shower and a cold shower, yeah, no,
so let's see if we can meet somewhere in the middle, perhaps. If we're basically saying, you know, relative to prorated days, are we saying, you know, about 21 days of use, or like 3/4 of a month of use?
I think however you slice, whether a percentage of the impairment in the day, per diem day, or number of days, it depends on how you slice it. Either way, you're probably gonna arrive at probably the same number. Probably, it might be best to just propose that number.
Yeah, so based on that, I'm really thinking at this point, which, you know, top line, I'm thinking 1,300, they've already accepted 250 without really accepting it, it's just been put on their ledger. And so therefore, perhaps a number of about $1,084.
I mean, I have my opinion. I said what I had to say.
Whichever,
So-
everybody has an opinion, so that's the reason why.
I think the
So I'm gonna take a stab and put a motion out there. So I'm gonna move that due to loss of use of regulated water and temperatures associated with it, that we would look to have we find that it's harsh and unconscionable that they were charged the full amount of their lease for a monthly basis, that we do acknowledge that concierge did apply a credit for $250, and that we, based on that, we're looking that they were charged about $1,085 over the amount that they should have been due to harsh and unconscionable conditions.
So it's 1,084, you said?
1,084.
1,084.
plus the 250.
No.
Nope.
It's already taken down.
It's already taken down.
Okay, so just to restate it, the motion that has been made is to find for an award in the amount of $1,084 to the claimant,
And it,
And the 250,
which already takes into account the 250.
250.
Yeah, so it would be a net award.
Yes.
A net
Yep.
award. Do I have a second on that motion?
second.
Okay. Any discussion, friendly amendments, anything? Hearing no discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, the ayes have it. Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, it's unanimous. Okay, so the third part component of this is how to get the award over. So the award of $1,084, I would entertain a motion to direct the concierge to make payment in the amount of $1,084 to the finance director to the town of Rocky Hill within 30 days of tonight's ruling. And at that point, that money would then be turned over, once accepted by the town of Rocky Hill, turn that over to the claimant.
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it, it's unanimous. Okay, I think at this point, that will close that portion of the old business. Thank you, everybody, for their time. We're going to go to the new business, which deals with the complaint, fair rent complaint procedures. There's a draft that everybody's probably received. Unless staff would like to table this to a,
My
Next
understanding, this was a document prepared by the town attorney, whoever that was at the time, and our HR director. I just talked to Attorney Snyder right prior to the meeting, and it wasn't he wasn't the town attorney that
Drafted this.
So, yeah, I did amend it to add a mediation procedure, and the only thing I would add is any materials submitted at the hearing, there'd be sufficient copies for the commission and a copy for the staff for the official record. That's the only thing I would add to this, but Attorney Slater did ask to see it in an
Yeah.
electronic copy, so.
Have you read this, had an opportunity to read this?
I haven't had a chance to study it, but, you know, it looked, from what I saw, it looked fine, and you can amend it. So if you want to get something in the books and it looks acceptable to all of you, if I have any additional comments, I could provide them through
Kim,
staff, or you can table
I'd
it,
agree.
whatever you
Kim,
prefer.
okay, quick question, Kim. Do we have, is it already incorporated that what we did with our practices with regard to the submission of written evidence and the volume and the amount? Has that already been incorporated into here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And this has been reviewed by Melissa Hicks, by Kelly, and by Ray Carpentino.
Okay, perfect.
They've all kind of-
I looked it over. I think you guys did a great job putting this together. It's very comprehensive. The only thing that I would add to this, and then maybe we could put a finer point on it later at another hearing once other people have had a chance to give it a second read-through, but the types of complaints, just to make clear, because as you see that I've taken the time to read at the beginning of every hearing, the sort of the factors that we decide in deciding a rental charge is excessive. I'm not asking you to list all 13
We have
categories.
the 13th listed on page 5.
Yeah, and what I would say is, I guess up front, the only thing I would add is where you have under types of complaints, 1A, where it says, you believe the landlord has proposed, the only thing I would modify to that would be two things, is propose, you have a rent increase. What I would have is proposed, or is charging rent or proposed a rent increase, because somebody could be in the middle of their lease where it's not a rent increase, it's just the rent, such that it is charging rent or proposed a rent increase that is excessive, and then I would add this, to the point of being, quote, harsh and unconscionable. And I would use that same language to the point of harsh and being unconscionable under 2A, right after the word unfair. The only reason doing that is because it helps guide somebody some perspective with filing the complaint, just saying, well, I think this is just too much, because my concern is that members of the public may be misled unintentionally to believe that this is a rent control situation. It's not. So there's standards by which we are required to review these things. That's why I want to tie it to the language of being harsh and unconscionable. Those are the only modifications I would suggest. Other than that, I think you did a great job, the town staff, for doing this and putting this together.
Can I amend this and send this on to you for review?
Yes. Yeah, and what I would suggest, so to get this on the books, is
So-
maybe I can make that motion
With those changes.
with those changes that I just described in the record, and entertain a motion to second. We have second the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, I would say, subject to the proposed amended language to be included in the draft complaint procedures, I would vote to approve this this draft as being final with the included language. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, I don't think we have anything else other than
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Hearing's adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.